Hey everybody, this is Ross Johnson. You're listening to WAYO 104.3 FM Rochester. Coming up on the WAYO Rochester show, coming up in that hour, I forgot how to talk. We're going to be talking about adventures. Totally unrelated. We're going to have a little bit to talk about in terms of gun violence. Those are very unrelated topics, but we're going to be talking about both of them. We're going to mix it up a little bit. It's going to be pretty wild. That's what's coming up on the show. But first,
Ross! Ross, come here! Now!
I'm here. What's going on?
Ross, this is amazing! You're never gonna believe it!
Okay, well, tell me.
Okay, well, remember when I installed the Oreja Grande radio telescope in the Space Bridge Observatorium?
Of course, in 2018. Is that still running?
Yes, and I checked the printouts of the radio transmissions we receive every week, like clockwork.
That is, I had no idea. That is really impressive, given that you rarely stick with anything at all for a long time. Like, nothing do you stick with. You just have no, stick-to-itiveness whatsoever with anything at all, really, ever. So, you've never really kept going with anything.
Okay.
Not more than a week.
Hey.
That's it. So,
Hey.
yeah, that's impressive. Interesting.
That's fair. But no, this is kind of a passion of mine, combing through the pages and looking for possible communications from extraterrestrial life. It's usually just a bunch of ones and twos, the occasional 3 or 14 thrown in. It doesn't take long. But just now, Ross, we have received a communication, which I am referring to as the wow signal.
Heather.
You should be much more excited about this.
Heather.
What?
The wow signal.
No, the wow signal.
Heather.
OMGP, please tell me you're seriously not trying to wow-splain me right now.
Oh, no, far be it from me to try to wow-splain.
Have you forgotten that I know all about the wow signal? Detected August 15th, 1977 by astronomer Jerry R. Ehrman, who was checking the communications picked up by the Big Ear radio telescope at Ohio State, and the signal itself being 6EQUJ5, by which Ehrman wrote, wow, hence the name the wow signal.
Oh, okay, I was totally going to wow-splain you, but that's actually it. So, yeah.
The wow signal has been a passion of mine since I was a little girl. What do you think made me want to install a radio telescope even, much less name it Oreja Grande? Big ear in Spanish.
Okay, I was pretty sure you just made up the name by drawing Scrabble letters out of a bag, or you let your Ouija board choose like you usually do when you name things.
Oh, so little credit I'm given. Ross, who ordered the custom 6EQUJ5 plates for the space bridge?
Wait, the space bridge has plates?
So little credit.
It's like street legal? Weird.
Yes, of course. You don't even know everything I do. You don't even know. You don't even pay attention. I swear.
Yeah.
I swear.
Why would I?
Okay, it's a thankless job. Anyhow, now that I've proven my wow cred, do you want to hear about our very own wow signal?
Okay, I do. You've kind of got me excited. Is it similar to the original?
No, not at all.
Oh, then why are you calling it the wow signal?
Once again, it's the wow signal. And I'm calling it that because that's just what it is. Look, right here. There's all the ones and a 2 and a 14 and then wow.
Wow.
Wait, this is so exciting. What do you think it means?
Heather, I hate to say this, but I think I know what it means.
What? Do you think it's bad?
Not bad necessarily, but I think you're going to be upset.
Oh, no. Why?
Well, I was going to tell you today that I'd been over to the space bridge and I wired absolutely everything up for my new patent pending space bridge home communication system. It's basically little buttons that monitor for voice commands and, like turn on the lights and play whatever song you want and transmit radio frequencies when activated by certain keywords.
Words like,
Specifically, wow.
what? Why?
Heather, do you know how often you say wow?
Kind of a lot.
Yeah, all the time. All the time. And I've been collecting every instance of you saying wow over the past week so I could compile a supercut and prove to you that you need a new exclamation.
So you stuck one of your stupid buttons on my Oreja Grande and messed up my data?
I think so. But, I am sorry. I truly had no idea you were still monitoring the output. I mean,
why didn't you ask?
I mean, the Oreja is all dusty. It didn't look like you touched it in years.
I get the printouts every week.
Well, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean.
I'm doing science, or was until you corrupted my data. I'm not leaning, so I'm not cleaning.
Yeah, obviously.
How dare you stick a radio transmitter on my radio telescope?
Actually, it's also a Bluetooth speaker. You can play your little music and shows. I don't know. Does that help at all?
No, it doesn't. Not at all.
I'm sorry.
Just give me a minute. Play the theme. I'm so upset. Here, I thought we had a real breakthrough. But it's just you and your stupid space bridge home picking up my stupid voice. I couldn't be more upset.
I'm sorry.
Just play the theme already.
Ugh. Wow. That's my impression of you.
Oh, it's everybody's impression of me.
Yeah. Hey, Space Cadets. Welcome. I'm Ross Johnson, your favorite co-host.
And I'm Heather Zykowski, the babe with the power. Welcome back to the Sound of Tomorrow on WAYO LP Rochester.
It's a show where the people come and they listen to the people and they talk when they can't calm down because they're too tired, but they're not.
I love your taglines. I love
Thank
this
you.
new segment where you just riff our new t-shirts.
It's truly I'm truly a master of ad lib and improv.
You are.
They're always genius.
They are.
It's when I think stuff out that it really doesn't work. That's when it's a problem.
Yeah, you just got to pop it off the top of your head.
Right. Hello, everybody.
How you doing?
Life's terrible.
Yeah, it is.
One of my best friends, you'd go, "Hey, how you doing?" And every time without fail, she'd go, "Bad." And it was sort of charming. You think that wouldn't be charming. You think that would get old, but it was like, no, this is okay. I feel like this is sincere. Because nobody tells you the truth when you say that. And sometimes I think, maybe that's the way to go. We just, somebody asks you how you're doing. You just tell it like it is. Say bad.
I was doing that. Bad. I was doing that for a while when I still worked in an office, and a coworker would always ask me how I was. And I would say like, kind of cranky today. And one time she was like, you always say that. And so then I started lying to her. And I told her I was I'm great. How are you?
I mean, I think here's the thing. Like, I think it worked with this person probably.
Yeah.
As I'm saying all this, it's probably a very specific thing. And it might not have even worked with this person. It might have worked with this person answering me. So it might have just been because here's the other thing.
People don't care.
The sad truth about that, nobody cares. The sad truth about having a bad day is like everybody's having a bad day. Nobody cares about you. So, it gets boring, and then makes people uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm turning around on this. You've turned me around on the topic of telling people how you really feel. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Nobody cares.
I mean, especially like in a small talk context, like, oh, hey, how are you? When you're passing someone like at the bar or whatever.
Right.
I'm doing great. How about you? Oh, good to see you. Good night. You do that kind of thing. There are things where I will write people going like, hey, how are you doing? How's your week been? And I genuinely want them to tell me how they're doing and how their week's been and all that stuff. But if I am at the store and the cashier says, oh, hey, how are you today? I will likely say like, oh, doing great. How about you? And what I expect from the cashier is maybe they'll say like, well, it's a busy one, but I'm doing fine. Or maybe they'll even say something light about like, "Oh, it's too busy today. I'm in a terrible mood." But we'll still just leave it there.
Yeah. And I've had like I'm not a snob about I don't need if I'm checking out at the grocery store, I don't need flattery. I don't need but
No.
I've had like I'm checking out the grocery store and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing today?" And somebody starts to tell me. And then I'm like immediately like, okay, I'm just trying to get through my groceries here. I did not really want to be trapped. I did not really want to be in a situation where I'm offering psychological counseling or anything like that. So it does like it definitely. And again, that's me. Not I'm not saying I don't. I'm not someone who likes to pretend that the checkout person at the grocery store is not a human being that I don't have to interact with or be nice to. But also, I'm sort of like I I'd like to go home at some point and now I don't know what to
Mhm.
say. I feel like I need to comfort you and I just really want to I just need to get these bananas home. They're going to ripen. You know, there's no
Yeah.
time. There's no time. I need to the bananas are ripening as we're standing here.
I
So,
I'm usually fine with that. I'm good for a good like, "Oh no. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh."
yeah, it's the second level, I guess. Like cuz you go like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry." And then they tell you more.
Right.
And then you're
Oh,
like, "Oh no,
and
I'm
then
not
you
that sorry."
then you have to start with the like, "I've got my bonus card," and I wonder maybe if you just told them what you're feeling. Have you said it out loud to them? Do they know?
Yeah.
You get into all that stuff.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not good.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's fine, and I wish we were more honest with each other in general, but then also I don't like interacting with people all the time, so it's hard, because
That's
small talk
yeah.
is sort of designed to save you from that. So,
Right, from
you know,
having the difficult conversations.
I don't know. What are
Yeah.
we even talking about? Hello.
Ross,
Yeah.
I am less than 24 hours back from a big adventure.
Yes.
I took
Yes.
And this I realize is kind of weird. I took the first solo road trip I've ever taken in my life.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's true,
I
because you like Uber to the grocery store, right?
I also don't consider the grocery store so much of a road trip per
You
se.
kind of do, though.
I mean,
You
I
kind of do,
hate
though.
driving. I do. I
Yeah, you kind of do
notoriously
act like
dislike
that,
driving.
right?
Yeah. No, I went to North Adams, Massachusetts, and I drove
Yes,
all by myself.
which is and you drove back.
And I drove back all by myself.
I love it.
Yeah, it was wild. I did a
So
good
what
job. I got pretty
so what
scared
what and why'd you get scared?
because on the way there, like I give myself like I dislike driving so much that sometimes I think the problem is I'm not a good driver. I'm a good
Okay.
driver. I'm a perfectly fine driver, perfectly capable of driving. But so even the nuisance rain was just this is dumb. I wish it weren't raining. But then it
Mhm.
started doing that kind of raining where the road spray is creating whiteout conditions
Oh yeah.
and
Wow, okay.
everybody's driving with their hazards on, which I
Sure.
did realize this was bad on me. My car is still newer to me and I forgot where my hazards were. So I was not driving with my hazards on because I forgot where they were. They've since been located.
Did you find the wipers?
No, I'm good with the wipers. I'm quite adept with
Okay.
the wipers.
All right.
But so that was really scary. And then there are some very, very steep areas of road. And that gets a little scary to me when things seem too steep. And then my hands start
Like
sweating.
how steep?
Like a decent incline.
Okay.
Like mountains and such.
Okay.
Yeah,
But you made it.
I made it. It was very
I
exciting.
bet I bet there are others in our audience who don't enjoy I don't enjoy solo road trips either, but I've had to do them many a time. I used to have a very long well, it wasn't a commute, but traveling from places to family places,
Hmm.
you know.
Well, how long do you consider a road trip? Because in college and stuff, I didn't think much of driving, like an hour, hour and a half over to a friend's house to visit. I didn't
Yeah, I don't
consider
know
that
if
a
an
road trip, though.
yeah, I don't know if an hour is a road trip.
I don't think it counts.
I mean, an hour is like in well, not in Rochester, but in,
In
you
a
know,
lot of
in
places,
heavy
that's
in heavy traffic
nothing.
somewhere, that's like, yeah. So an hour is not a road trip. I mean,
Yeah,
a road
in
trip's
Los Angeles,
at
an
least
hour
two
is like
hours,
the
I think.
airport to a house.
Oh, not even.
Yeah, and like
Not even.
Boston, same.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think a road trip is at least 2 hours, minimum two
Okay.
hours.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've never ever done one of those by myself.
Okay.
So it's very exciting. I went up for the Wilco Solid Sound Festival
Yeah.
and got to
Which
stay with.
is interesting.
Yeah, well, I think anybody who's listening to the show knows that I am a big fan of John Hodgman.
Yeah.
And so the draw for me was that Hodgman was hosting the comedy stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't get to see quite as much of Hodgman as I thought I would due to timing and rainstorms and one of the sets being at capacity and we got turned away. But that's
Oh
all
no.
right. And we saw some cool bands and did hear Wilco, but didn't see them because there were too many people.
Oh.
But it was fun. It was so much fun. I got to barge around to town and eat way too much food and meet cool people.
Wow. Did you make new friends?
Yes, absolutely. Because I
Okay.
was staying with a friend who lives there, but then that friend has like all these cool people who live nearby. And so I
Mhm.
got to meet the cool people and hang out and stuff. And it was
How
really
neat.
good. It was a really fun vacation. And I got to see the
Uh,
museum and stuff.
that's so impressive. I've had a pretty wild weekend myself, you know.
You did.
Yeah. I bought a new bird bath, and
Ooh.
I planted some I got some tomatoes and some other plants, and
Nice.
we watched like 2 episodes of Stranger Things.
That
So
sounds good.
feeling pretty good about my achievements thus
That's
far
pretty wild. Most
this holiday
definitely
weekend.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm,
Absolutely. No, I
I'm
just got
glad you
to.
I'm glad you made it back.
Thank you. Me too. I was very excited that on the way back it was entirely clear weather.
Yeah.
It was just so much easier. Like
You know,
just sunshine all the way.
I think it's like I will take road trips to see my mom, which is about in the
Mm-hmm.
2 hour range. So that's sort of a thing, but that's a fairly, I don't know, it's a fairly well trod. It's not a bad trip because it's all sort of like highway, but it's quiet highway. It's a quiet part of highway, so it's not bad. But when I used to, I think what's better about it now is because I used to travel between like I would travel between like DC and Rochester
Ugh.
on a not regular but often enough basis in and in a younger time when the automobiles available to me were not really like, we're sort of like on the border of really being able to manage that.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's, you know, it's probably better now when I have like a bank account in AAA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that like makes a little that makes it a little bit easier, I would think.
Yep. Yeah, that did help a lot because my parents were watching Nigel while I was away. So one of the
Hmm.
first things I did when I got home was gave them a call just to let them know, like, I'm here. Don't worry about him. I'm home with him. I'm not going anywhere now.
Yeah.
And my mom was saying, like, that at times she started getting really scared thinking of me out there on the road all by myself. And I was
Hmm.
saying, well, I've got a purportedly reliable vehicle. I've got AAA. Now I've got a cell phone. I've got the charger for the cell phone, so it's not going to run out of batteries. Like, there's absolutely nothing in this world that's safe.
Yep.
But if you're going to be taking a road trip, I feel like with cell phones and AAA and everything, it's a lot safer than it used to be.
Yeah, like I had a I sort of broke down and I got off the highway, which was probably stupid, but I was like, "Oh, I'll get off on this exit cuz something was going wrong." And like I wound up it was sort of this exit to nowhere. Like, and I just
Right.
wound up stopped like nowhere, and I was nowhere. And then I was away from the highway, so I was nowhere near like getting. This was before. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't before cell phones, but it was before I had a cell phone,
Right.
and I had no money also. And then the weirdest thing, like this guy in a truck who I'm convinced was like a ghost.
Yes.
this guy,
Obviously.
this guy. Oh, I mean, also probably back in this time, people were probably more inclined to help people by this. Because now I see somebody by the side of the road, and I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, they're calling somebody. It's fine.
Yes.
Somebody. I'm always like, A, I don't know how to fix anything, and B, I'm sure they're just waiting for help because they probably called somebody, so it's fine.
Mhm.
Um, I think back then people were probably more inclined to stop and help people if there was an issue.
Yes.
But like this guy stopped and helped me, and it was my alternator, and he took me to the place where the alternators, and like I bought a new alternator and he put in the alternator. Basically, I want to say he helped me put in the alternator, but he pretty much put in the alternator. And I was like,
Holy
and
crow.
I was sort of like, can I give you some money? Which I don't really know what I was saying because I didn't really have any money. Um, and he was like, no, that's fine. And then so it was like, I was like, that could have been the end of me. Like that could have
Yeah.
been like, because it was snowing like in my, I mean,
Right.
it was not a great like, and again, pulling off the highway was not, which I
Yeah.
thought like, oh, if I pull off the highway, maybe there's something there, like maybe there's a garage or something.
Right.
Um,
Or a gas
but there was
station or
not,
something.
or a gas station. There was nothing. So I was just on this
Yeah.
side road, like waiting for somebody to come by in the snow. So point being, I think you did it but a smarter way. Good job.
Yeah, well, I just did it because I have more modern conveniences. Because
Sure.
I mean, I remember not exactly similar situations, but I remember someone telling me that a band that I liked was playing in Buffalo. And they're like,
Mhm.
oh, come on out. But I didn't know where the place was. And I was given the vaguest of directions. So I just ended up like driving around Buffalo, stopping at gas stations, like trying to figure out where the show was. Somehow I found it.
Well, that was the other thing too. Like that was also a time when direction you had to kind of know where. I mean, this sounds like one of these like middle-aged man comedy routines where they're
I
just
know,
like,
right?
remember back in my day. But that was also, I mean, this was not that long ago.
No, it
And
really
like if you
wasn't.
like to find a thing, you had to know exactly where it was, because if you didn't, there was just no like helping you. You were
Right.
just lost
Yeah, because
forever.
that's the other thing. Now I have GPS because to get to North Adams, it was a lot of expressway till around Albany. And then
Mhm.
at Albany, they were like, go here, go there, go here, go there, there. And it was all these weird, windy, like not quite rural highways, but more rural than I would have known existed in the general Albany area. I was going through towns that I did not know were in New York State.
Okay.
I also realized I am, you might know this about me already, I'm profoundly lacking in understanding where anything is. Because as I'm driving, I'm like, gosh, do we even share a border with Massachusetts or do I need to do something with another state here? Huh. Guess the GPS will tell me. It's so dumb. So dumb. That's what happens when you fly everywhere. Because I'm more used to just dealing with TSA and then I just land where I am. I don't have to deal with state lines. I just fly right over them.
Mhm.
I like that my GPS welcomes me places. When I went over the border to Massachusetts, she said, welcome to Massachusetts. When I
Oh.
came back in New York, she said, welcome to New York. And I just left the GPS going because she tells me about speed traps and stuff. What I love best is when I leave it when I'm coming home. She almost sounds wistful when I pull into the driveway and she says, welcome home.
Oh wow. Yeah, my GPS doesn't do that.
No? Mine is
No.
nice. It's pretty cute.
No, mine doesn't mine doesn't. I don't know that mine's all that impressed with me. So I think it's just trying to do the bare minimum. I think it's
It's
just
like,
trying to like
just
do its
turn
job. And
left. Wherever you want, turn left. No, mine's all like, stay left and take the second left on the left.
yeah.
She's very detailed. She's actually just Google Maps.
Well, that's, see, my, but I use, well, no, I guess I use Apple Maps more, which is not as good as Google Maps, but I don't know, it's a little easier to connect to on my phone.
Yeah, she got me almost everywhere except right when I got almost to my friend's house.
Hmm.
She failed me because
Oh.
I knew I was looking for a big yellow house. And so I turn the corner, there's a big yellow house, and she says, your destination is on the right. So I'm like trying to figure out how to park my car, which I don't know how to park my car. I mean, come on. And I'm thinking I'm there, and I'm texting my friend. I'm like, I think I'm here. And he's like, you're not.
Oh.
But it's yellow. It was just a couple blocks up. But in fairness, Google Maps did say my destination was on the right. And my destination was not on the right. My destination was a couple football fields up.
Well, maybe Google had a better idea.
Maybe Google thought that I should meet new people.
Right. Yeah.
But it was a
Maybe
whole lot of
Google's
fun.
not
And
impressed with your friends.
maybe, yeah, who the heck knows? But yeah, it was a whole lot of fun. I'm super duper glad I did it. I'll admit I'm a little bit proud of myself for overcoming my dislike of driving and just deciding like, hey, this is going to be a good time. This is worth the drive.
Do you love solo road trips now?
I don't know. I do feel like, because longtime listeners of the program might remember that I gave up my beloved subcompact car about a year ago and
Yeah,
started
nobody
driving
remembers that,
one
but yeah.
that was much bigger. And I feel like this definitely kind of bonded me a little bit more with my car, which is probably necessary.
Okay.
So maybe I'll feel more comfortable driving everywhere from now on.
It's fun though. You can listen to whatever you want, and nobody can tell you anything different.
That was fun too. I had this weird mix that I'd put together. Just one night I was being whimsical and putting together a silly mix, and it's like 3.5 hours long. And it goes all over. It's like Ella Fitzgerald to They Might Be Giants to Cab Calloway to The Killers. And it just goes all over the place. So that was really fun.
See, and nobody can tell you different.
No, nobody could. Nobody could be like, could you please, please, please turn this off?
You can even you could eat a Taco Bell and nobody could even judge you.
Yeah, no, I did. I'll admit, I brought snacks for the car, but I only ended up eating string cheese. And in some small town in rural New York State, a lady next to me in the car had to watch me like eat a string cheese so freaking fast at a stoplight.
Hmm.
I was hungry though.
You couldn't eat a string cheese like while you were like on the highway. Like, you can't. I mean, I guess
They're hard to
I guess I applaud
unwrap.
your safety, but okay.
Yeah, I do like to keep my
Okay.
hands on the wheel.
Well, you're new to this. You're new to this. All right.
What, do you just drive with your knees? Are you a drive with your knee person?
No, I'm just no. I feel like I feel like I've just figured out how to eat something while I'm driving. Eat a dry something while I'm driving
It's my
on the
preference to
highway
not.
without
Yeah,
like
it,
without it being
it's
a
definitely
safety.
like, it's not a safety thing. It's my preference to not eat in the car. I don't enjoy it. I don't like a
Okay.
car snack. But this was a matter of, wow, I'm really super hungry and it's a bad situation and I need to have some food right now.
Hmm.
If I liked eating in the car, I would have gotten an Impossible Whopper at the rest stop.
I just want you to think about the danger of being underfed and having low blood sugar while driving versus the danger
Well,
of
that's why I
putting
had
a
to
cheese stick in your mouth.
scarf a bunch. That's why I had to scarf a bunch of cheese sticks because I was starting to feel weird. It was more important to get some
Hmm.
nutrition.
I don't know. I don't know if I approve of any of this.
Well,
I don't even know if I don't know if I approve of anything you've told me.
I know you probably don't approve of me driving a car at all.
I sort of don't, but
It's
I
all
have
right. I
no
don't drive
real
it
legal
often.
basis for getting I have
You
no real
don't.
legal basis for getting your license revoked, so
Not yet.
I have to let
But
it go.
don't you worry. You might be on the list for who gets to have control of all of my assets when they take away a woman's right to own property. It's entirely
Oh,
possible there's some kind of kinship relationship by now, like common law
yeah.
guardianship.
Yeah, I feel like the gays are next though, so I won't have anything for long, so don't get too
Oh, all right. So then you'll just pass
yeah.
it along to someone. I don't know. Maybe one of
Yeah,
our straight friends can take our stuff.
right.
Straight
Right.
male friends.
That one guy
Yeah.
we know.
Right. Darn it.
Um You know what? Maybe that's a segue. I so well, congratulations and welcome home.
Thank you. I had a good time. So if you ever want to go on vacation with me, I'm a lot of fun, actually.
She's not. But
I
so
am. I
you're not.
barge around.
But uh, you're
I'm a lot of
you're,
fun.
you know, we're not allowed to eat in your car, and you're just standing back and like kind of being vaguely aware that Wilco exists. So is what I'm hearing about
Are you a
your road
Wilco
trip. So
fan?
I'm just saying, I do, I like Wilco. Yeah,
Okay.
I like
I
Wilco a
feel
lot.
like I feel like I might have missed my window for them.
But I also feel like I okay. I mean, I have Wilco music like on my computer and stuff, and I have like Spotify. So
Yeah.
so your version of going to a Wilco concert sounds an awful lot like just listening to Wilco on the radio.
It it really was, except we were sitting on a blanket in a field, which is why we couldn't see Wilco because other people were in front of us standing and also in chairs, but we needed to see Wilco so badly that we were sitting.
Sure.
Yeah. It was good.
Interesting.
It was the right choice.
Oh yeah. No, it sounds great.
It was really great.
Let's
It
do
was
it.
really a lot of fun.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do
We
it.
will we will hastily we will we will hastily eat dry non-crumbly snacks at a stoplight and um convince ourselves that Wilco is somewhere in the area. That sounds good.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
wonderful. I can't wait.
I
I'm
love
excited. We'll go.
it. Yeah. We'll go to
Oh,
Wilco.
we already did. But we can find another show of theirs.
All right. Okay,
Yeah.
as long as you drive.
Sure, I'll drive.
Heather, can we
Ross,
talk about a slightly more serious? Can we talk
I
about a slightly more
know.
serious
I was
topic?
trying to put it off talking about string cheese, but we do get to, we are the sound of tomorrow after all, and can't be all goofy string cheese sushi platters.
This is some hella whiplash here, but I'm just gonna go for it because I wanted to I don't want to get into the I guess there's a little bit of a warning here because we are going to be talking about the recent shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde, Texas. I don't want to get deep into the emotional weeds of these things, so I'm going to try to avoid doing that. Just because what I wanted to talk about was less the. I feel like there's plenty to say about the people who lost their lives and the very real tragedy of all that. I sort of don't want to do that just because emotionally I don't think I'm
Right. I'm
I'm
not
up for that.
sure. Yeah, I'm
And
not
that's a
sure I have.
privilege. That's a privilege to
It
be able to,
is.
you know, that's a privilege to not be able to talk about that. But as a lot of people know,
Well,
my brother was a student at Columbine, and this gets very emotional for me. But I
yeah, and
wanted to
also,
talk about.
just to mention, it's not necessarily a privilege. This is also a radio show. It's a public thing. There are things that maybe we want to keep our emotions a little more private about. So don't beat yourself up over maybe not wanting to get into the too emotional aspects here in a public forum.
No, and like I said, I don't feel bad about that. I feel like I don't know. I just want to make clear sort of where I'm coming from with this.
Mm-hmm,
But I
mm-hmm.
wanted to talk about some of the what I wanted to talk about was some statistics because so part of the thing is like these things happen constantly,
Constantly, all the
and
time.
what yeah and and that's an issue right there. Like people, I think people don't realize how often even these things happen. And by these things I mean mass shootings. So
Right.
there have been, what's the number just of mass shootings this year? It depends on how you define mass shootings, but there have basically 100 people are killed by guns in the US every single day. 12 of those are children. So a mass school shooting is not that. The reason I want so I wanted to bring some facts and figures in here just because you hear so much from politicians who know better and from politicians who don't, I guess. Maybe they're genuinely misled as well. But what I find in the discussion of gun violence and shootings in America is that there is so much wild misinformation, and it's not the
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff where it's not the kind of stuff where it's it, it's not even in the realms of things where it gets really complicated or you have sort of these philosophical disagreements, but like there are laws, I've had arguments with people about laws that don't exist. Like, people arguing about how their rights are so restricted because of a law that literally doesn't exist. Like
Okay.
that restriction that has caused them such difficulty in their lives and pain doesn't exist and has never existed. And
Okay.
that's happened to be on more than one occasion
Wow.
where I've had to point out to the person like, okay, can you okay, I guess can you go online then at least and show me evidence of this law you're talking about existing? Um
Right.
cuz
Goodness, I've
cuz
never
I've
had
sort of
that
said to people,
argument.
well, I've sort of said to people a couple times like, what about uh, you know, what about current or potential gun restrictions? Like tell me specifically how it would impact you.
Mhm.
Like I want to understand how it would impact you because you're obviously very, you obviously feel very strongly. And
Yeah.
and I've gotten this like, oh well, I can't do this, this, and this, and it's like, okay, well, I don't think that's a law, but why don't you show me?
Yeah,
Like,
do you have
go
any
online.
specific do you remember, like, a person's
No, I
specific
don't. I
concern?
don't.
Okay, alright.
And I don't want to get into really specific cases there, but um, no, they're you know um yeah, no, I don't have any. I don't want to get into specific cases with that, but
Okay,
so
because like, a thing I've actually had people say is that Hillary Clinton is going to come and take away their guns.
right. Well, let me give an
Which, like,
example.
that
Let me give
seems
you an
wild
example.
to me.
Let me give an example of how far we are from that. Okay. So, first of all, a lot of these restrictions, I should preface this by saying if you look at these mass shootings, if you look at all of the most recent mass shootings, and this isn't 100% the case, but it's probably about 95% the case. So, you see the things about, oh, restrict guns from, keep, let law abiding gun owners have their guns. um, in all, and you can sort of go through, and I could, but I won't. But I encourage people to do this research if they're interested and concerned. If you go through, particularly mass shootings or any shootings really that happen in the United States, it is almost exclusively the case because we have so few gun restrictions. It is
Mhm.
almost always the case that no one was breaking the law when they
Mhm.
acquired the guns that they used in
Right.
their crimes. So I sort of never know what that means when people say, like, I don't, and I guess I'd like to know. I mean, what I found, unfortunately, is having this discussion with people is like with a lot of heated topics where there's a lot of misinformation.
Mhm.
Um, you can't ever get to any logical place. Um,
Right.
and again, you see that, and I even see signs, and I see people have put up signs since Uvalde because now everybody's all terrified that everybody's coming to take their guns away. Keep the guns in the hand. Punish the criminal. Don't keep the. Well, that's meaningless because there's no crime was committed until the crime was committed. There was
Right.
no in almost every circumstance. I mean, in a vanishingly small number of cases, the guns might have been stolen or whatever. But in almost every circumstance, again, because there are so few restrictions, people just bought the guns. I mean, there's
Mhm.
no, this was an 18-year-old in Uvalde who had every legal right to have the guns that he had. So
Mhm.
there's no, so I don't know what that means, but like, so one of the things that's fascinating, and then I'll go through some statistics, like how far we are from um, Hillary Clinton personally coming and taking all your guns.
Yes, with her trick or treat
You know,
bag.
so some of the laws in this country. So when you watch like a crime show and they're
Right.
like, "Oh, we're gonna run a trace on this gun."
Uh-huh, yes.
Um, it is against the law. It's not just that we don't do it; it's against the law to have a national searchable database of gun-related crimes. So, and this is because I guess gun owners who commit crimes don't want their information tracked, but it's against the law. So there's a place in there's the bureau, it's called the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives
Mhm.
National Tracing Center in Martinsburg, West Virginia. So if you watch one of those crime shows and somebody's like, oh, we're going to run a trace on this gun, they literally have to call this place, and if the gun was purchased from a licensed gun dealer, they have to call the gun dealer who's responsible for keeping accurate records and try to get the record from the gun dealer on paper, because they can't put it in a computer. I guess when a gun dealer goes out of business, they can get the paper. They get the paper from the gun dealer and then they scan it.
Oh my gosh.
And then they can have a scanned copy, but they can't put it. So you can't. So whenever there's gun crime, you can't like put in like there's nobody in law enforcement that can like type the serial number into their computer and find out, oh, has this gun been used in other crimes?
Uh-huh.
They have to call this place in West Virginia. They have to go into a box
Oh my
of paper
gosh.
or call the gun dealer to find out what's the history of this particular firearm if
This
it's
is
there.
all
And
new.
as
This
you
is
can
all new
imagine,
information to me.
and please, if anyone doesn't believe me, please look it up. I'm 100% telling you the truth, and this has been the case for a long time. And of course, there's a huge backlog. I mean, the just an article that I'm referencing from a few months ago, and again, this is more than one article. The backlog is the backlog is like tens and tens of thousands. So, are they even caught up? If that police officer or law enforcement officer in that show says like we need to run a trace on this gun, are they even caught up enough to have the to know where that is? Again, so that it is, and that is a law. It is, again, it's not just that we don't have a good system for tracing guns. It is against the law to put that information into a searchable computer database.
Wow. I completely believe that absolutely everything you're saying is true. I just didn't know this until today.
Yeah. It's also against the law to you can't sue a gun manufacturer for a crime for basically a crime for if one of their products is used in a crime, you can't sue the gun manufacturer for that, which is, it's really one of the, there are one or two other examples of similar things. I mean, because the general idea is like, the general idea with you being able to go to court is I have access to the courts. The grand jury or the judge will decide if it's a reasonable case. So they came up with this law that said you can't sue. And a lot of, like with tobacco companies,
Mm-hmm.
that's how a lot of tobacco stuff came to light, right? Like people started suing the tobacco companies for the damage their product was causing. And that was how a lot of the bad practices of the tobacco companies came to light. It's against the law to do that in the United States. You don't have access to the courts. You can sue them for other things, but you can't sue them for this, which makes it very hard to. And then that also becomes a defense for the other things as well. Like, oh, you're kind of suing us for this. So the gun industry has a legal protection that pretty much no other industry in the United States. Like they put a similar restriction in place with COVID vaccines. Like I think they are indemnified, at least in the short term, from lawsuits.
Okay.
But that's really like the only other example of something like that. And that's just the power of the lobby.
Right. Again,
So
fascinating. I didn't know that. I mean, that makes sense because otherwise you'd hear about all kinds of, suits against Smith and Wesson and other gun manufacturers.
Right. Absolutely. So let me run through some statistics, and I'm going somewhere with all of these numbers at the end. I had more complicated research on this that I was going to go through, but NPR had a piece that actually very succinctly, I thought, sort of got to the point that I was trying to make in a much more succinct way. So I'm gonna look at this NPR article from May 27th. It's by Britt Cheng, 12 stats to help inform the gun control debate. So again, number of people killed by guns every day in the U.S., that's 100. Number of children who die every day from gun violence in the U.S., that's 12. School shootings since Sandy Hook, 950. There have been 27 so far in 2022. They don't all make the news anymore because they're happening like once a week.
Yeah, I was just wondering how many weeks into the year we are.
The peak ages for violent offending with firearms is 18 to 21.
Mm-hmm.
The number of AR-15s in circulation in the United States, or variations of AR-15s, are 8 million. 9 in 10. The people who attempt suicide with a gun is the numbers 9 and 10. And people dismiss the number of people when you start throwing in deaths by suicide, people sort of dismiss that like, oh, that was their choice. But the fact is, with suicide, very often we find that the psychology or neurology of that is it can be a temporary state.
Mm-hmm.
It's very often a temporary state, and what we find very often is if people are not successful. I shouldn't
Yeah.
use the word successful. I apologize for that word. That's not really an appropriate word. But if people do not, do not die by suicide, they very often go on to live their lives. So
Yes.
the presence and the access of a gun, which is sort of an easy way, you know,
Yeah. And I mean, just anecdotally from my life, that's true. People who have attempted to take their own lives and haven't perished during the attempt.
mhm.
As far as I know, still living and living very well and thriving. Whereas had they
Yeah,
attempted to do it with a gun, that's a
there's a
it's a
lot
gun.
of interesting. I mean, of course, suicidal ideation, depression, all these things
Oh yes.
are long term sorts of things. But they've a lot of what modern science has found about it is that moment of that moment of crisis is almost an altered state of it's almost an altered state of mind. It's almost temporary insanity, I guess, would be the closest, the easiest way to sort of phrase that. Um, it is a moment when your brain is not functioning as it does at other times.
Hmm.
So if people are able to that's why, suicide hotlines, interventions with friends, all these things, you're not necessarily doing something that's just going to put off the inevitable. You are very often doing something that's going to save someone's life forever,
Yeah.
for anyway. So, again, people dismiss that death by suicide number, but I think it's important, it's an important factor. 98% of mass shooters are men. Um, the percentage of gun owners who favor presenting the quote unquote mentally ill from purchasing guns is 89%, which is interesting. I mean, the mental health thing is always, it's a yes, it's a no. I mean, part of where I get stuck with it is aside from the sort of stigmatizing mentally ill people as,
Right.
all violent shooters, there's also, I sort of wind up getting stuck here with the, okay, well, what would you like to do? Because you see the things about like, oh, well, we need to, we don't need to regulate guns. We need to take care of mental illness. And you're like, okay, well,
Uh-huh.
what do you, okay, great. Sounds good.
Mm.
What are you proposing to support, and help and assist people with mental illness? And it's
Right.
always nothing.
Yeah, it's always nothing. It's just and I I'm trying to remember the screening questions on, for example, a New York State pistol permit. And I believe there are things like, are you on antidepressants? Which isn't really a great like way to do a full mental health workup, I don't think. I'm not a
Right.
mental health professional,
Yes
but
or no?
it didn't seem like a yes one yes or no question was a very rigorous screening.
Yeah. um uh percentage of gun owners who favor background checks at private sales and gun shows, 77%. I think that's always an interesting one because that's one of those cases where, and I will say, even though I said I didn't want to get into specific examples, that was the kind of thing that I've run into where people think there are more restrictions and more
Mhm.
requirements than there actually are. So you'll see people saying like, "Oh yes, I'm absolutely in favor of this law," that they think already exists, so they don't want any more. And you're like, well, the law doesn't exist and you're in favor of it.
So, am I understanding that background checks are not always they're not. They're not
It's
like
very, I mean, it varies. It varies. It
wildly
varies
from state
wildly
to
from
state,
state to state.
yes?
Yeah, it does. But even there are a lot of federal restrictions. The federal restrictions tend to be more um, legal matters of you may not do this, you may not put this in place. So, yeah. So it varies from place to
Okay.
place.
Well, and I think
Uh,
it varies versus like what kind of firearm one is attempting to
abso-
purchase as well. That's
Absolutely.
wildly all over the
And where,
place.
even within a locality, it varies depending on where you're buying it.
County and whatnot.
Yep. Well, I mean, like, are you buying it from a private dealer? Are you buying it from a family member? Are you buying it at a
Oh,
gun
that too.
show?
Yes. Yes.
Or are you
Sporting
buying
goods
at a licensed
store.
deal? Right. So that makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm,
43% of gun deaths are murders. Um, 79% of all murders involve a firearm. And then, so this is kind of what I wanted to get to with this. So, less than 1% is the percentage of people who defended themselves with their guns.
right.
and so this is the thing. And like, I don't like guns for a lot of reasons. I understand they're a tool, they can have use. I mean, I'm not, you know, there's there are uses that make sense, like with anything. But if you told me, right, like if you showed me the data and said,
Mm-hmm.
let's take the school shootings, and you said, like a lot of people say, oh, we just need the armed guards, we just need teachers to have guns, we just need blah blah blah. And then you showed me data that said, oh, this does stop the school shootings, this does
Yeah.
save children's lives. I wouldn't love that, but I would have to take that very seriously and say, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe maybe I need to, maybe my principle here, my ideal here, I need to like take out of the closet and
Mm-hmm.
hold it up in the light and say, does this make sense in the light of day? Um, Unfortunately, so the numbers on this are so 1000% the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Um, the good guy, and you look at these scenarios. I mean, Uvalde, there were a ton of police there
Yes.
who didn't do anything. There was an armed guard at the door. Texas has been actively encouraging teachers to arm themselves for years.
Yeah.
And
Though I did read on Slate today that a newer report has come out from one of the police officials in Texas saying that the armed guard who was supposed to be by the door was away from the door. They don't have the answer for where the guard had gone or why, but the armed guard who at first reports were telling us that the guard was present, the guard was absent.
yeah, and I don't know, and I hate to villainize somebody who, stands by a door all day every day and nothing happens, and then went to the bathroom at the wrong moment. I don't
Right,
know.
I
I just don't
know.
know I don't know. And I'm hoping that there will be an honest and accurate investigation into that. But in all these cases, um, and in fact, the state attorney general actually put out a statement after this saying, like, oh, we need more teachers and administrators to have guns. So um, there's a lot of data. There have been a lot of studies on this. So, for instance, last year, a group of public health scholars, there was a study in the Journal of the American Medical Association. They looked at 133 school shootings up till 2019. An armed guard which was present in about a quarter of the incidents. Um, in the instances where there was an armed guard or an armed person or more
Mhm.
than one armed guard, uh, the death toll was 3 times on average higher than at the places where there was not. And the analysis of that, again, you don't always know what's going on moment to moment to moment during a school shooting,
Right.
even after the fact. I mean, you're putting together
Mhm.
to put together a second by second. But what's the belief is, and the assumption based on the data is that, um, you know, particularly if someone has an assault weapon, it is
Right.
very hard to counter that with a handgun. It's very hard for an average person to, and they said this is true even of trained police officers. Like, I think for a trained police officer to hit a moving target at something like 14% of the time.
Sure. And that
Um,
makes sense. It's not as easy as it looks on TV and in the movies.
Absolutely. So what the feeling is that you having a gun is actually a distraction, or it maybe gives you a sense that you have more agency than you really do to counter the situation, when you
Mhm.
should really be making an effort to get out of the situation.
Right.
Um, Also, in a lot of cases, the shooters tend to be working through suicidal ideation. So the presence of another gun can actually encourage them.
Right.
So again, I'd love to. So all these reasons. And again, I'm not, we're not talking at this point about like specific measures. But all the stuff that informs the debate and all the stuff that politicians and the gun lobby want to be the talking points.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much that's so misleading,
Right.
and so wrong. And again, this idea that, and you hear this every time. Oh, if there had just been more teachers,
Mm-hmm.
we have more guns in this country by far than we do people. Um,
Absolutely.
so the idea that like if we had just a few more, none of this would be
Yeah.
happening is absurd.
It really is.
Um,
And a lot of people are saying this, even people who super duper actually care about children. They're saying, well, maybe if we just surround all the schools with trained police. And my reaction is no, that's the last thing that should be done for many, many reasons. Like,
and again,
no.
even just, I mean, and that's my instinct too. But the thing is, when you look into the data, you're right. There is no argument to be made anywhere that
Yeah.
is the right thing to do. And again, I'd love to see if there are different numbers that are legitimate and accurate. Um, fine, but you can't find them. I mean, I've been, I've been aware of these issues for a couple decades now, and they don't exist.
Yeah.
You can't find them. And if you could find them, we wouldn't have so many school shootings, because that would be your proof right there.
Right. And it would have been effective.
It would
And
have
the
been
numbers would have
effective.
gone down. And the numbers have
Absolutely.
not gone down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw again, and there's a lot to. I don't want to dismiss the lives of anyone who was lost in these
No.
shootings.
No.
I just emotionally I didn't feel prepared to get into that, so I
Right.
wanted to talk about some numbers and some facts, and I hope this will inform some discussions maybe that people are having. We'll see.
Yeah. And
I
again,
don't know
that
what else to do.
article, you were citing the article from NPR called 12
Yeah,
Statistics About.
12 gun control statistics inform the gun help inform the gun control debate from Britt Cheng. There are a few articles I could probably put up. There's one from the Pew Research Center called America's Complex Relationship with Guns. There's one there's a well, there are a few different places where you can find out about the gun tracings. An article from the Los Angeles Times called 22 mass shootings,
Yeah.
374 dead. Here's where the guns came from. That sort of breaks down the recent mass shootings and the mostly legal places that people got the guns. And I'll direct you to one more real quick from Slate. And this was more of a narrative, but it does sort of break down. It does sort of give you a narrative of based on some of the data, which is the GOP's only answer to school shootings didn't help in Uvalde by Alex Yablon. And that was interesting. It was more of a narrative, but it does have links to the
Mm-hmm.
data that it points to. So
Excellent. I kind of felt like it was important to mention those sources, maybe even just for myself, because I do sometimes have to have conversations about this. And if I have actual numbers, facts, and studies I can cite, helps me out.
I guess.
Well,
I mean, you
because
hope.
you know how people are. They don't necessarily want to hear about my emotions and my feelings, but if I have some actual data, every once so often, that gives me a more legit leg to stand on.
I love that. Well, thank you, everybody. I know this has been I know we took you on quite a roller coaster this episode.
Oh, yes, it was
We took you
a
on a long
wild
car ride is
ride.
what happened. Yeah.
And then you got
But
really hungry and a little bit weak.
a little bit weak, but we will be back next week. We'll get something to eat.
Yes.
You should get something to eat too.
I'm going to go have a
Hi,
string
Harley.
cheese right now. I'm very excited.
I love it. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week. Do you think the humans have received our message?
It must have reached them by now, and we chose the clearest word they would understand.
Yes. Wow. Was a stroke of genius. The female of the pair utters it constantly. They surely will understand.
I hope they are preparing for our arrival.
We have chosen well.
Ross and Heather, we shall be meeting you soon.
If only we could have If only we could have transmitted that thought.
But instead, wow.